Hello, I'm Tom Ovens, Creative Director from the agency Shaped By. This is the Changemakers. If you haven't joined us before, a big warm welcome. This is our series with various folks from creative, brand or marketing backgrounds, or anyone and everyone who values the impact of creativity. This week our guest is Adam Legg, a freelance sound designer that we've had the pleasure of working with across a number of our own projects. From Lacework's product launch of their AI Assist tool, to Rubrik's immersive cinematic brand film building drama and atmosphere around their key offering of data security. In this episode of The Changemakers, we're digging a little deeper into the secret art of sound design. What is it? What's the process of creating it? And how do you ensure it's impactful? I hope you enjoy. Thank you very much for joining us today, Adam, and giving us your time.
Thanks. Yeah, it's good to be here. Thanks for asking me to come. That's great.
Adam, could you start off by just giving us a little bit of definition from your point of view around what sound design represents from your perspective and what skill sets that brings together?
Yeah, so sound design, I think, is a combination of real-world sound effects. This could be Foley that you've recorded in the field. This could be sound effects you've pulled from various vast libraries, of sounds, and you often manipulate those sounds, you process those sounds, or you could create sounds completely from scratch using synthesizers or hardware, various instruments. There's so many ways you can that you can manipulate and play around with sound, and it's for me, it's a kind of combination of all of those things. I love to keep sounds naturalistic. And keep those organic textures, but you could also take it. You could also use various ways of processing that to make it sound like something you've never heard before. So there's this level of discovery that's quite exciting about sound design. It's a sort of journey of discovery, if you like. You can manipulate and craft any sound you like. The more you do it, the better you get. The sort you think, this could sound like this, and I might just, to save on time, if I'm up against it, I might just pull something from a library, and I know exactly what to do to that sound to get it to sound like this, that, and the other. It won't sound exactly like that original sound, but I think it's about having a general overview of how you can play around with sound and how does it fit the visual.
And does it scratch that itch, that music itch? Because I know that from some of our work together, one of our clients, I think they said that it had kind of James Blake vibes and things. So does that kind of feedback, does that help scratch that itch of that kind of music passion within you and like wanting to fulfill that aspect of your work?
Absolutely. Yeah, it's very much so. That was really nice feedback, actually. It's I think anywhere, any excuse to just play around with synthesizers and instruments for a living is brilliant. It's kind of hard to believe I've finally got there. I think I was always looking for that route, but it just took a long time. It does scratch that itch. I feel like the musical side of it, because there are two sides. Sound design, you could argue, is a different world, but they do kind of coexist and they do cross over as well, but as sound design, I'd say it was slightly more technical, whereas music for me is more based on sort of feeling, and like how do I convey that? How do I want to express myself, and what should this sound like? So it's two different processes really, and then joining them together is quite fun. It's like sort of piecing a puzzle together. And it's always a challenge. It's always new. I've never, it's never. I never like to use the same sounds too much because it just gets a bit boring. I think otherwise, it's nice to keep an open mind.
Dive a bit into your process and things like that. Could you start by telling us just typically how do you start a project? Do you have sort of certain processes you go through, or is each one unique? It'd be great just to hear from your perspective how you typically start out.
Yeah, it's I think every brief is unique. It's a lot of the time if there are references from the client, that certainly helps. It's great to have sort of free reign, full creative license, if you like. Um, that's great because I can take it in any direction I like, and I sort of. But it can be problematic because you can if you're not collaborating, you can go off piste, and it's quite a subjective thing. Music is a subjective medium, so if you don't get it spot on, or it's not quite what the client was expecting, you could sort of set yourself up to fail sometimes. So I think it's always great to sort of draw an inspiration from a couple of references that the client may have pulled out, and then from there you can kind of it might be a case of matching the tempo or the characteristics of that sound, and then putting your own spin on it.
So do you typically start with the music component of it, which determines like the tempo and the speed and things like that, and then you kind of look to layer on top the kind of the sound effects or some of the more of the storytelling specifics? Because I think what I love about the work that we've been exposed to with you so far is that the kind of the layering that you do. So it's got this really nice cinematic, atmospheric kind of background sound that kind of helps support the narrative and takes you through that journey. But then the little embellishments as you go along that kind of take you through that kind of roller coaster. And as you say, I can imagine that without some direction, because it's such an emotive component of the finished solution, that, as you say, unless you're on the same page as where the client or whoever you're working with at the time, obviously they have a kind of quite a gut reaction to it, I imagine, don't they, in terms of whether it conveys the same feeling as they'd anticipated.
Sure. I think it can vary. I think I prefer to start with the music because the music takes center stage, if you like. It's probably the most impactful part of it, and it also it takes the longest as well. So there's always on the back of my mind, you have to weigh up how much time do I have, how creative can I be. You're always confined by that, and that's something you learn with time as well. Is how long these things take, because you get given 2 days, but you could theoretically spend a week, 2 weeks on a project. You never put it down, and just have fun with it. It could end up sounding completely different. So there's this. I think I would start with the music predominantly, and then I would look at a little bit like TV editing. So you look at a show and you've got like spot effects, you've got things that are quite obvious. Anything that has motion, things with lots of animation with lots of moving parts lends itself quite well to sound design, obviously, because there's a lot of movement there. That's not to say that you have something that's quite still or quite minimalist, if you like. That's a challenge in itself. That could be quite fun, turning that into a piece. But it's I think the sound design would come after in terms of what I think something should sound like. In terms of the effects, and then it's a case of blending the music and the effects together, and that in itself is a whole other stage, because you find yourself stripping back the music then, like I sort of mentioned before, like a bit of a puzzle, and then making sure that there's space in the mix for everything, so it's all audible is another skill in itself. It's just making it's like mastering a track, making sure that everything's balanced. I think, but yeah, I think to answer the original question, music first, and then sound design.
Brilliant. Thank you. Thank you. And then you may have answered this already, but do you tend to work from a library of tracks? So when I say library of tracks, is your music that you've composed beforehand that you kind of keep ready for a certain moment, or do you tend to start from scratch each time? I just kind of wondered, do you kind of keep a back catalogue of your own work that you can reference as you need to, or is it much more bespoke on a case by case scenario as such?
I would say that I very rarely keep libraries of my own sounds, just because it takes time to catalogue all these things, and it kind of, I think it would constrict me creatively. I do like to start from scratch, if you like, in every project with a blank canvas. I have lots of libraries of sounds, and there's countless royalty free, samples online that you can draw from music as well. I like to write my own music, but things like vocal samples, for example, that's something that's quite difficult to create. So I would maybe use a sample pack and just draw sort of certain things from that. But I think I do. It's a combination of both, but I much prefer to just write my own thing, and start from scratch. It's much more fun that way. I think it's much more creative.
Yeah, I was wondering, you mentioned earlier about the time constraints and things like that. That to me seems quite daunting, particularly in some of the projects we've been involved in where the timings are really, really tight, to actually just set out on a bespoke music journey as such in the timeframes. But yeah, that's fantastic to hear. It's such a bespoke solution then that you come up with, and no wonder we enjoy your work so much.
Thank you. Yeah, it's the thing is the time management is such a huge part of it. I think when I started out in TV editing, I did lots of promos, short form content for like Travel Channel and Food Network and Discovery Channel and all these, Nickelodeon, and there were all these kind of very fast. They given them like an hour, to mix and edit something, throw a few sound effects in, and just churns out. And you've got to do like 5 or 6 of these maybe a day with different clients. They all want to come in and pitch in and like it was fun. It was really intense, but that kind of taught me you have to be quick. You have to be quick at editing. And so, if I do get given a project and it's a blank canvas, I'll throw everything at it. It's like, and then strip it back after. I just waste no time just trying to. I think I work better creatively like that as well, with music. Yeah.
So do you have kind of heroes as such, sound design heroes, or those that you follow and feel that are doing it really well, or kind of smashing the industry as such? Are there those that you kind of in those projects where perhaps you can't, it might be a bit of a stagnant start? Do you have the resources you go to just be inspired and to just kind of get those wheels in motion in your creative mind?
I'm more drawn to individuals I might find on Instagram, if you like, or pop up on my feed. There's some people out there that just they'll recreate recreate a scene from a film, or they'll create their own animation. There's this Instagram account called Unknown Sources, and they effectively use they create visuals with Touch Designer. I don't know if you've heard of Touch Designer. It's like sort of reactive. When they make the audio and they craft the audio around the visuals, it kind of reacts to the visual in a live sense. I worked with an artist, a French artist called Myotic, who had an exhibition, and he basically wanted it was all just completely generative and random, and it's just beautiful visuals that were supposed to portray states of matter, so sort of gas, water, solid, and it was great. And he just wanted me to like throw some sounds on there, and then he was talking about how do we randomize that? How do we keep those sounds, but in not in a linear way, and sort of randomly generate them using various Touch Designer and Ableton and lots of different different types of programs. That was something that's quite new to me. I don't know a great deal about it, but it's something I'm quite keen to explore, certainly. But yeah, like sort of going back to your original, I think I like seeing people work with that, because I think that the sound is just completely different to anything I'd ever heard of before. It's and it's so. I think I'm always drawn to something that sounds very glitchy and sort of Aphex Twin like, if that makes sense. Just something that's quite complex, lots of moving parts. I guess that impresses me because I always think, how would I create that? How would I do that? And it gets my brain going. Whereas if I see something with a few whooshes on, it can be quite uninspiring. I try and stay away from whooshes as much as possible.
I'll remember that next time we provide feedback. It's amazing you mentioned Aphex Twin, actually, because I love Aphex Twin. I grew up with him when I did my my uni degree. I quite often used his music in some of the pieces I was working with and things like that. And just some of it I liked just because it was quite controversial. So I think is it Come to Daddy? The music video for that is so outrageous, and then the way that the sound layers onto that video is so epic. And then he's got some quieter pieces like I don't know how you say it, Avril 14th, the piano piece. The spectrum of his work is phenomenal, and what he goes through. And I drew a lot of inspiration when I was at uni, actually, from him. So it's interesting that you mentioned him.
I love the fact that it varies. A lot of his heavier stuff, obviously, is like an assault on the senses. I went to go see him in Bristol last year, and at the Ford Fest, and it was unbelievable. It was like I'd just been in a washing machine for about 2 hours. there was no hello, there was no bye. It was just go, and it was relentless. It was like he was toying with the crowd. It was, but from a sonic, I mean, my partner was was ready to go, but from a sonic perspective, it was probably the most incredible thing I'd ever heard in my life.
I'm sure there's so many layers to his music that I can't appreciate at all that you take from it. But I mentioned the spectrum. I do think he's got ones that you can appreciate as music. Some I think you can appreciate technical ability within, and then some I think it sort of feels like he's challenging the audience to a certain degree. Like some of it, I almost equate to being like in an MRI machine where it's just kind of random electronic noises happening type thing. But I'm sure he's very constructive in the way he puts those together. But to me as a layman audience as such, it's actually just the challenge of understanding what he's trying to communicate in that, I guess.
Sure. I think it, but he does like beautiful ambient music as well, doesn't he? He's this like lovely, slow.
That's what's phenomenal about the depth that he's got. Yeah. Are there any brands in particular that you think are doing it well? There's a few that kind of stood out to me when I was preparing for this kind of conversation and things. And I've got a particular passion for kind of advertising, so a lot of mine kind of fall in that advertising space. But Honda, for example, I think they've done some really nice pieces over the years. And there's one that they did with Man versus Machine. It's called Keep Up. I don't know if you've seen it. It's an insanely rapid transition of music with text on screen and cars in movement. And I just think that the whole piece comes together so well, but really built off the strengths of their cog ads and hate something, change something. And to me, the storytelling and the music came together so well. So that one in particular always resonated. To me, the storytelling and the music came together so well. So that one in particular always resonated. I wonder if there's any that are kind of on your radar that you feel are doing it really well.
Yeah, it's a good question. I don't know necessarily if I could name any specific brands, but I have seen that Honda ad. I think the one you mentioned, and I think that that is a classic example of how the sound is really driving that. Like that's that is at the front of that mix, and it's the way that the text and sound are linked in that, it sort of tells the whole story. It's so clever. It's intertwined. So I think for the longest time, people, they don't really value the sound. It can be an afterthought. So it's nice when it's used from the start, from the start of the process, and it's not overlooked, because of the potential for the impact it can have on the viewer. It's next level if you include that.
Is there scope in a way to be able to start the process with sound more so? I think we've always been conscious of like setting out some of the timings and the motion to enable the sound to kind of then accompany that. But is there a space where the two can kind of run in parallel with one another, or perhaps that sound can lead more of the conversation between them?
Yeah, I certainly think so. I think it's sound is very impactful when done right, and I've worked on projects where, well, I've collaborated with an artist where I would write the music and he would put the visuals to my music, which was interesting doing it that way around, because normally the sound is the last link in the chain, if you like, of the production finishing process. So it was quite nice and refreshing to do it like that, and also with the sort of the aforementioned audio reactive stuff with Touch Designer at the moment. That's also something which changes the production sort of order, if you like. Yeah, if that makes sense. I think that sometimes it can benefit. It's certainly worth collaborating with the client from a very early stage, and not leaving it too long. If you wanted an original score or some bespoke sound design, it certainly helps to include the mixer or composer from an early stage. So yeah, I think it's there's definitely scope for that.
Yeah, brilliant, Adam. Thank you very much. And then I think last one for me, one thing I find as a kind of designer and creative is that I find it very difficult to kind of switch off from that world. And so I'm kind of always on the lookout for, typefaces, colorways, like storytelling, creative communications, how things are kind of coming together. Do you find it similar from your discipline? Like, do you find that you can never switch off? So when you're, watching the films or TV or even just on socials and things like that, that you're kind of micro analyzing the things that you see and sort of taking learnings and savings and bookmarking items, and it becomes an obsessive part.
Is film. Film scores is a huge inspiration for me. I've always been drawn to scores that have a combination of like orchestration, but with contemporary electronic elements, because it sounds familiar, but it's also completely new, and that's quite exciting, I think. There was a composer. There was Johan Johansson. He was an Icelandic composer. I believe he passed away in 2018. Actually, he was quite young, sort of mid-40s. But he scored Sicario. I remember that was one of the scores that really connected with me. It was very sort of slow and dark, broody score, and it just moved at its own pace, and it was just very impactful. It really connected with me. I just think I always, if I'm watching something, it could be just 2 seconds of music or sound, and it'll really connect with me. And I sort of get quite excited. I'm like, how can I make that myself? How can I do that? So yeah, film music is a big one for me. That's the thing of one of my earliest favorite composers was Thomas Newman, actually. He did the Shawshank Redemption. He's done a bunch of stuff, but he was quite unique in the way that he wrote music. He drew on colours. He always he looked at the picture and he imagined a colour, and then he would play around with that in his mind. If that makes sense. And if it was blue, if you like, it would keep it light and playful. So I just always thought it was interesting how different people write music that way, and they get inspired. So I went off on a bit of a tangent there.
But I was actually thinking, I'm sure I might be making this up. I'm sure I read that Quentin Tarantino actually starts his process by sourcing the music first. Like I'm pretty sure that as he starts to build out the scenes in his mind and initial annotations of them, his first point of call is to find the accompanying music and then build the scene around that as well. So yeah, it's interesting you speaking about process and how people come to it because yeah, I think that does make a big difference. Yeah, you touched on some heroes there. Yeah, Shikari's got a great soundtrack from memory. I think there's some real kind of like otherworldly, kind of just deep bass kind of atmospheric drone sounds at times to just allude to the threat that they're kind of experiencing within that context, if I remember it correctly. But
Yes. Yeah, it was these big swells, these big kind of horns. I mean, it's kind of been, Hans Zimmer's done it a million times now. It's almost become a bit of a joke, hasn't it? These big kind of horn swells, and it's almost like a bit of a parody now. You can't really get away with it. But at the time, it was like a very dark Zimmer score to me. I don't know if that makes sense. So I just thought it was really interesting. And it was quite bold, I think, at the time. I hadn't heard anything like it. It always stuck out to me.
okay, so yeah, just wanted to wrap up and say thank you very much, Adam, for the time today. I found it a fascinating conversation, and hearing what inspires you, a bit about your process, etc. So thank you so much for taking the time, and I really look forward to continue working together on our various strands of work and pushing the boundaries and what we can do together.
Well, thank you very much for having me on. Thank you, Tom. Appreciate it.